Hi, my name is David Bingham, and I'm a recent graduate of Florida State University's Information Technology program, and I am fascinated by data and the process of taking data and turning it into useful information. And I feel that databases are one of the best tools that we have to go through that process of turning data into information. And so that's why I've decided to specialize in database administration, database creation. And today I want to talk about a tool that I use when I'm developing a database-driven website. It's called Mercurial, and Mercurial is a version control system software program. And what a version control software is a program that allows you to keep track of any changes you make to any files that you tell the version control system to keep track of. And the reason that you would want to use a version control system is anytime you write code, you're gonna add to it, sometimes do some things that don't work. You're gonna possibly be working on a team with other people, and they may make changes to code, may not be well documented. You need some way to look at the changes that have been made in your files, so that if you get to a point where you're stuck or it's not working, you can go back to a state that you're comfortable with, that was working, so that you can continue working and not, bang your head against a wall trying to figure out what you've done wrong. And I feel that Mercurial is a great tool for that. So this video is targeted to coders, developers, anyone that in the information technology field that needs to keep track of changes they make to files. You notice in the window that you can see on my desktop here, I have two windows open right now. I have my Windows Explorer and a folder called My Project is highlighted. We're going to use that folder for this video, and let's pretend that that is a new project I'm working on, and I've already started. I've got two files in here right now that I want to keep track of. I may be working with those a lot, and I want to keep track of changes I make to those files. So we'll use that as our test for this video. I also have a command line window open to the My Project folder, this same folder. Mercurial, in its basic form, runs from the command line, and you can do all of your commands here. So we're going to go over some of the basic commands that allow you to use this version control system. Every Mercurial command begins with the letters HG, and then you put what you'd like Mercurial to do. How Mercurial works is it creates a repository in the folder where the files are located that you'd like to keep track of. And that repository just keeps track of all those changes. Once you create a repository, you don't need to do anything to the repository. Mercurial does all the work for you with the repository. So that's our first step, is to create a repository. And we do that with the hg init command, which initiates a repository. Now you notice that nothing happened in the command window, but if we go over to the My Project folder, we have a .hg folder that was created. Now we know there's a repository in this folder. What we can now do is add files to the repository. In other words, we tell Mercurial, keep track of these folders, or these files, excuse me. We do that with the add command. And I want to add these two files, so I don't need to add. After the add, you could add the name of whatever files you'd like Mercurial to keep track of. I'm going to do both because I'm going to pretend this is a large project I'll be working on. So I hit enter, and Mercurial tells me it's added those two files that are in this folder to the repository. The second step is to commit the changes that I've made. I have now added these files to the repository. My next step is I need to tell Mercurial I'm committed to these changes. I like these files the way they are. So let's commit these changes so you keep this as a definite record of a state that these files were in. That command is the hg space commit command. And that commit is a final step in noting the state of these files. And so Mercurial makes me write a statement of what I've done. And in this case, I'm initializing my repository, so I can write something like beginning repository, and then I can save that file, which is kept inside the .hg folder. I don't need to do anything to it because it opens it automatically for me. So now I've committed those changes. If I want to see what commits I've made, let's say I've got 80 files in here and I've made hundreds of changes. If I want to see the different changes I've made, I will use the log command, and that will open the log file and show me the commits that I've made. And as you can see, I've only done one, so I have one change set, and I haven't changed the username yet. It just says Joe User here, but I have begun my repository, and there's my note. So now I know, I just started this repository for these files. Now obviously the main purpose of this reversion control system is to track changes. So let's say I come into my some text file and I write some more stuff that I want to keep track of, and I'm comfortable with that file. Now I've saved it, and now I've changed that file. What I need to do now is commit that change to the repository. So I come here, I do my commit, and Mercurial asks me again. Notice it just says change some text.txt because I did nothing to the other file. So I need to write another note of what I did, and then save that note. And now Mercurial has committed that to the repository, and now I have a second marker showing a difference in a file. So if I go back to the log command, I now have two change sets. First one says beginning the repository. My second says added some stuff. And so now I can see when I've committed and what the differences are in those files. Every time I make a change in a file, if I'm comfortable with that, I can commit it to the repository, and Mercurial will keep track. And that will allow me to keep track of all the changes I made, and I can always revert back to another version if I'm uncomfortable with where I am in my process with the files I'm working with. Any developer or coder that wants to keep track of their code and make sure that they know everything that's gone on with their file should be using some type of version control system. I recommend Mercurial. I feel like it's a great product, and I hope you found this video educational. And like I said, for more information, please refer to the supplemental materials I've added. Feel free to download those, and thank you for watching the video.